For our video project, we decided to interview Professor Julius Adler. Adler, who has studied at many prestigious institutions including Harvard, Stanford, and Washington University, has been part of the UW Biochemistry and Genetic Department for over 50 years. Currently, he is doing research on sensory reception and decision-making in fruit flies. He and his fellow researchers present the flies with attractant and/or repellent. Mutants that are neither attracted nor repelled by either are isolated and studied for psychological defects. Through experimentation, Adler hopes to discover what mechanisms are involved in the decision-making process. When we interviewed Adler, this is what he had to say.
So imagine you're sitting in the living room and you smell something delicious in the kitchen. So you start walking out to the kitchen for this stuff that seems so good to you. And on the way to the kitchen, you see a tiger who's roaring at you. And now you have to decide what to do. Whether to go out into the kitchen after this delicious food or run away from the tiger. What would you do?
I would run away from the tiger.
You'd run away from the tiger?
Yes.
What would you do?
Run away from the tiger.
What would you do?
Run away.
Run away from the tiger. So I'm interested in how the brain makes that decision. So in the case of bacteria, these bacteria are motile, they run around, and they are attracted by certain things analogous to that food in the kitchen. For example, glucose, very attracted to glucose. And they're repelled by certain things like that tiger. For example, a dangerous chemical. So these bacteria presented with food that they like glucose, and a dangerous chemical. They have to put the two together and decide how to act. And that's what I'm interested in this article. And that's what I'm interested in the fruit flies. We give them something that they like very much, which is light, and something which they hate very much, which is a certain chemical, let's say benzoylide. So together, they are confronted with these two things. So we have a tube here, and at this end of the tube, we put bacteria or we put flies. And at this end of the tube, we put something they like together with something they hate. Like in the case of flies, some light, which they like, and some chemical, which they hate. And these bacteria have to decide what to do. Or these flies have to decide what to do. We have isolated mutant flies that don't know what to do. Something is wrong with their brain. And because of that thing that's wrong, they just don't know what to do. So they just randomly walk around instead of staying away from this bad stuff. So these mutants are the focus we have to try to find out what is wrong with their brain that prevents them from doing the right thing.
Adler and his lab genetically mapped the mutants to find out where their gene defect is. The lab wants to figure out how this gene works in wild-type flies to bring about a decision. They want to know what this gene normally does, what protein it makes, and how this protein is involved with the decision-making process. But what effect does Adler's research have on society as a whole?
I think that some criminals have a problem up here. I think we're dealing with that problem. And if we could figure out what is wrong in the brain of the criminal, we could correct that behavior.
While in the lab, we also took the opportunity to ask an undergraduate researcher for some advice.
Well, I pretty much just got started. I went to this, it was like a meeting with a bunch of, or there was like a little, I don't know what it was, a bunch of professors that needed help in their labs were at this place, and I went there to get into a lab to, for a Bio 152 research project, so that's how I got started.
Okay, and what would be like your general day-to-day, what do you do in the lab?
Well, we just run tests on various behaviors that the flies exhibit, and we isolate these mutants, these mutant flies that don't act the same as the wild type flies. So we run them through assays to test for their different defects, and then we pretty much publish the data, and that's pretty much all that we did.
Cool, so is this the semester that the 152 lab is 152 for you, or is this like
Oh,
you
no,
did it another semester?
Yeah, I've been here for over a year now. So.
Okay, so you got started and then you just kept doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you generally like the experience that you have here?
Yeah, it's obviously nice to get the credits, and it's good experience to get to gain experience and knowledge from Julius, who's been a professor for decades. So it's good exposure to that scientific world, pretty much.
Yeah. And do you have any advice for us freshmen about how to balance like research with a job and school and everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you can get into a research lab, I think it's a great experience, and it's definitely a good GPA booster. And I mean, if you have time and enough space in your schedule to fit it in, then I think it's a great opportunity.